I'm Patricia Durgin, founder of ProfitFromYourMessage.com. Today I'm in Murfreesboro, Tennessee at the Christian Products Expo, hosted by the Muntz Group. Today I have with me Mr. Bryan Davis, well-known, well-established, highly respected Christian author. Thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Good to be here.
We've moved furniture around just a little bit to make this work. So you're a kind and accomplished and family man with 7 children.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about your books and your website. But what we talked about earlier was Bryan is so well accomplished in one genre and has a book out now that's in a very different genre and facing the same challenge everyone else faces. This is a new market.
Yes, it is.
You're not a new author by any stretch. How long have you been published? It's been
my
years.
first book came out 10 years ago.
And you've written how many since then?
Well, I have my 23rd novel just came out.
He's about to get the hang of it. And how many have you sold?
About 1 million copies altogether.
So casually it just drops that in there, about 1 million copies. But you and your wife, your family, this is a blessing from God to you and your family.
Oh, it certainly has been. Being able to be an author and be with my family all the time. We tour together, we edit the books together, we have brainstorming sessions on ideas and storytelling. It's wonderful.
Isn't that delightful? His wife is off camera, but she's here. Hello, Susie. She so kindly joined us, moral support. So you have 2 books with you, but let's first talk about your more well-known books that are so popular and have an audience and have had for many years.
Yes, the first series is called Dragons in Our Midst. It came out in 2004. It kind of reintroduced the fantasy genre to the Christian market, especially in the young adult market. There was no Christian fantasy in the market at the time. You think of Chronicles of Narnia and Lord of the Rings, that's the kind of genre we're talking about, but those were published by secular publishers. This was the first time a Christian publisher did something like this in decades. So it was fun to be able to reintroduce the genre. Now there's lots of titles out there because mine have done so well.
How do you have any sense of it other than a God intervention, how it came about that you were the one that broke through that barrier?
Well, I always hope and think that God's involved with it and that He inspired my stories. I think the audience was ready for it. You know, there was the explosion of that genre with Harry Potter at the time. And there were some Christian publishers who were looking for an alternative to Harry Potter. That's not why I wrote it. I'm not a Harry Potter basher or anything like that. I just wanted a great story for my own kids.
And it just so happened that Harry Potter was on the market.
It just happened at the same time, right.
And now you have 2 books with you today that are not in that group. They're new. They have a new approach.
Yes, one of them is related. There's an umbrella category we call speculative fiction. In that you would have the supernatural fiction like, let's see, This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. And you'd also have science fiction and the fantasy like I've already done. But there's also one genre now that's exploded in the market. It's called dystopian. That would be The Hunger Games and Divergent and things like that. And I wanted to write a dystopian myself. For one reason is because my daughter, Amanda, has a dystopian trilogy out right now in the Christian market. She wrote the first young adult dystopian ever in the Christian market. It's called The Cantrell Chronicles. The first one's called Precisely Terminated. I said, well, I'm going to write one too. So
I've met his daughter Amanda. She's way cool.
So we have this book now. It's called Reapers. Now, it doesn't have a strong faith element like my other books. I wanted to reach out to a mainstream market, more public schools. So I wrote one it's still wholesome. It's got good versus evil, a good, strong, heroic, sacrificial character, everything that Christian parents want for their kids. It's just not going to have a gospel message. Well, my hope is that a lot of readers who don't read my other stories might read this one and then be attracted to my more Christ-centered books.
Okay, that's a great marketing tactic.
And so this is the first of a trilogy. So it's the dystopian genre, but it's still under the speculative fiction umbrella. And the other one is more contemporary fiction. You know, real life, real world, no fantasy, nothing supernatural. It's just a family adventure. It's called I Know Why the Angels Dance, and it came out a few years ago, but because I wasn't well known in this genre, it never sold very well like my other books. So we're hoping to reintroduce it. That's why we're here at the conference. We're giving this book away to the booksellers, owners, and managers, and hoping that it will get the sales that it deserves. Because I have some readers in my fantasy genre who read this, and then they end up saying, now this is my favorite book of yours.
I love that. I love that. So do you plan on doing more of these?
I will if this kind of book will sell.
If it goes. I mentioned earlier at the beginning that Bryan is, in this one regard, he's now searching and developing.
I'm trying to get a readership among people who've never heard of me.
And it's so odd to hear that out of his voice because so many people know him and he's done this for so long and he's so well. No matter how well known or poorly known you are, we have to find an audience or our work has no value to the world. It has value to us and to our relationship
Otherwise,
to Christ.
we're just fruit on the tree that never gets picked.
And that makes, who doesn't that make crazy? Even if we don't blatantly say, I'm a Christian and this is a Christian book, the fact that a Christian is writing it, there's a sense of hope.
It's going to have that
It
worldview.
ekes out.
It's going to have a worldview that says there is hope, there is always good. Evil will not triumph. Even though it may look bad for a while, at the end we're going to show there is hope. And Christian worldview always has that.
Yes. And as Christian writers and speakers, we all feel that way. We all carry that within our spirits. And people say don't agree with that methodology, that worldview. They notice it. Even if they can't describe it or explain it to another person, it registers in them.
And that's why I'm hoping for that for the dystopian, because the Reaper's book, the dystopian genre is so dark and it's so hopeless. If you've ever read the Hunger Games trilogy or other dystopian novels, you'll see the hopelessness and the lack of the Christian worldview, and I'm hoping to bring the hope and light to that genre. As my daughter Amanda did, she did the same thing.
Well, speaking of how is her series doing? Her trilogy?
Her third one in the trilogy is coming out probably in about a month, and it hasn't sold as well as my books, but now that the third one's come out, we're going to do another push for that as well, because I'm going on a big tour this fall, and we'll have her books with us.
It's really delightful. I'm sure your other children are too. It just so happens that the only one that I've met so far is Amanda.
Yes, she is delightful. This will be my first tour for Reapers. I have done tours with I Know Why the Angels Dance before, but
Way back or recently?
A few years ago. It's just that my fantasy books so overwhelmed that book. And soon my last book in the current fantasy series will come out. So that story world will come to an end.
Your last book?
Well, the last one in that story world. It's actually the 12th book in that story world. We're talking about 1.5 million words in that story world. It's about time it came to an end. So I will be featuring in my future tours, featuring other books. And so we'll just see what kind of readership we can get. I'm always trying to expand and go through different avenues.
Broaden your horizons.
Yes.
So now you have a website.
Yes, daviscrossing.com. D-A-V-I-S, my last name. Crossing, C-R-O-S-S-I-N-G, daviscrossing.com.
And your books are, I'm interested in your books. Where do I go?
Well, almost any Christian bookstore carries them. Your typical Barnes & Noble Books A Million will have them, kind of hit or miss. I go into the stores and some have them and some don't. But any bookstore can order them because they're distributed all over the world and all the normal distribution channels.
You're on your website as well?
Yes, my website, daviscrossing.com, has all of them. You can get them autographed there.
Yeah, baby. And you speak as well, don't you?
Yes, I speak all over the
many
country.
times.
Usually I have about 200 talks a year, all over the country, through Canada. I've even been as far as Singapore doing
Oh, how exciting.
events. So
How exciting.
if you want me to come to your homeschool group, you can contact me on daviscrossing.com. Just pretty much anything at daviscrossing.com. Bryan, author, everything comes to me.
Okay, that's a great approach. And one of the things that I talk about with my clients is one website. If you plan well, everything that you do can be encapsulated on one website. You do not have to have 7 websites, one for
I
each
agree
book
with
or
that.
series.
When my series came out, I had dragonsintermits.com. But then I started other series and other titles, so I consolidated on Davis Crossing. Because Davis is my last name, Cross, the cross of Christ. Crossing is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it worked well. And one Facebook page works too.
And one Facebook page. Yes. Hallelujah. Anything else you'd like to add before we?
One thing that I do find is a lot of Christian parents are nervous about fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of dark fantasy out there.
Yes.
Actually, the authors have the intent to want to put dark images and thoughts in kids' minds, suicidal and things like that. But I believe that God wants us to write with fantastic stories. Jesus told fantastic stories.
Yes, he did.
Like a camel passing through the eye of a needle, and Lazarus going to Abraham's bosom. To those people at that time, these stories were like fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
What? We never heard of such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was controversial, and he used miracles to teach. And if you put all of his miracles in a storybook, it would be like a fantasy novel, even though he actually made them happen.
Uh-huh.
So I believe what we're doing is taking fantasy away from the dark side and bringing it to the light where it belongs.
Go ahead.
So I think I'm a father of 7, so I wanted to write stories that would be healthy but still stay in the fantasy genre that kids love.
Yes.
So I just want to encourage parents. I understand why you're nervous. I understand your fears about the genre. And I hope you'll just trust me and read a couple of the books. You'll see.
And you will keep their children safe.
Yes.
What more could we ask? Thank you so much for joining me
welcome.
today.
It's
I've
been a
just
pleasure.
enjoyed it. Once again, I'm Patricia Durgin, founder of ProfitFromYourMessage.com, with my guest Bryan Davis. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Thank you.